Let us bring in our next guest. I'm hoping it's not going to rain all day, by the way. And here she is. This is a magnificent human being. This is now, when I often talk about how being in service to other people is really good for your soul and uplifting and raising your spirits, this is an example of such a human being who does that. Radha Stirling does that. How are you, Radha?
Wonderful and great to see you again, Sonia.
Great to see you. We do often talk in here about how to lift your vibrations, and one of them is being in service to other people. And you absolutely are in service to other people. The things that you do for other people is literally phenomenal. You are, as they've been now been calling you in the newspapers. I don't know if you're happy about that. Crisis manager. You are the CEO, of course, of Detained in Dubai. You are a human rights advocate. Are you a lawyer as well? By trade. Well, certainly you have a legal understanding, a great deal of legal understanding. But so you've been over the mainstream media this week, and for a very, very good reason. This is an extraordinary story involving Dubai. Before we move on, and you tell us about the story, just tell those of our viewers who don't know what Detained in Dubai is all about.
An organization that assists foreigners who run into legal troubles in the UAE and further afield.
It really is that simple. And how many thousands of people have you helped?
It's over 20,000 now, so we're probably heading to 22, 23,000 soon. I'll be tallying up at the end of the year.
I mean, that is extraordinary. Why is Dubai so problematic for many foreigners?
I think Dubai is really problematic. I mean, obviously, it's a number one tourist destination for British citizens and visitors, expats. People want to go and live there and enjoy, a low tax lifestyle. But I think the biggest problem comes from the marketing and the contradiction in what it appears to be, which is this party heaven of very relaxed circumstances where you can do whatever you want, whatever you would do in any other country like Spain or Las Vegas. But on the
Yeah.
ground, it's actually very different. And I think it's a contradiction that leads to a lot of confusion and issues like we saw with Joseph and Joshua Lopez.
Well, let's talk about them because this is an extraordinary story. How did you get to hear about their plight?
Joshua's aunt contacted me when they had been
See,
detained
you are
in Dubai.
literally, you are a lighthouse for this. This is so important. Let's talk about it. Joseph and Joshua Lopez, they arrived. They've now arrived safely back in Ohio, which is where they come from. They were only in Dubai on a short vacation. It turned into an absolute nightmare for them. What happened?
I mean, we're looking at Mr. Louisiana, actually, Mr. USA contestant. He wanted a quick holiday with his brother. He's a retired Air Force veteran now. And when he arrived there, he was seen as a target. As an American, he doesn't know much about the UAE. And he was lured to a party on board a yacht where he was given a drink. The brothers were each given one drink. And that's pretty much all they remembered. So clearly the drink was drugged. They were looking, I believe they took some money from them, some credit cards. And the next thing they remembered, there was a group of people trying to drag them into a car. They thought they were being abducted. And under the sort of drugs or whatever they were given, in the confusion, they tried to defend themselves from this, but it turned out they were actually plain clothed police officers. So they were taken to the police station where they, said, "We think we've been drugged. This was very weird. We only had one drink." And the police refused to test them. Next thing, they're charged with consuming alcohol without a license from an unlicensed venue, which is the yacht. And of course, no one else on that yacht was arrested, just these two boys. And I believe that they were absolutely targeted. And this kind of thing happens on a very regular basis. I think, they were already sentenced to 6 months and they were facing additional sentences. So probably would have been 2 years or more. But fortunately, we were able to liaise with J.D. Vance, who's a senator of Ohio, and of course, Trump's running mate for the presidency. And he was so on the ball. He was pushing the US State Department, the US Embassy to get involved diplomatically. And I think without that diplomatic intervention, and of course, the support of the media, it was all over Fox News and, television broadcast. Without that, I think they would have seen years in prison.
This is really shocking. So you're telling me that people who actually have been victimized, they were very likely drugged. Who knows what else happened to them? They were robbed, so they were attacked. And yet they were then the criminals of all of this. Is that often how it works out there?
Oh, very much so. It's often the victims who end up being victimized again by the state of the justice system there. We had Selena Waterman Smith, who was nervous to report her case, and in fact, the British Embassy advised her not to report her case. Now, she's a former Apprentice star, quite a, sort of mini celebrity. She was abducted from outside a hotel, taken to the desert, and gang raped by several men. And the British Embassy said, don't report the crime because you'll end up being charged with, indecent behavior or sex outside marriage. But she decided to push it and did manage to get them convicted in the end because of the CCTV evidence. But so many women, so many men who have been the victims of crimes have ended up being prosecuted and even jailed.
That's extraordinary. Do you think had you and JD Vance not got involved, what these guys would have been in prison, wouldn't they?
Automatically, it was being streamlined. We don't know how influential and powerful the people were who actually drew them to the yacht. And in many instances, they have a strong connection with royals, members of the royal family, or with officers, police officers. And that affords them protection. And I mean, it happens so often that you do wonder whether there is some sort of a corrupt relationship there.
I mean, I think that's kind of key right there, and I think it would appear that that's a sort of sub part of the issues that you're dealing with is not straightforward. There's something clearly going very wrong that so many people who are not from the UAE go there and they are victimized and they are repeatedly victimized. As you say, they're not just the victim in the first instant, but then they become the victim by the police who then accuse them of the crime that they're not responsible for. So it's really problematic. But you were full of praise for JD Vance, weren't you, and his role in this?
Absolutely. I was so happy to see, the level of involvement that he was willing to offer, the level of push. And when governments do get involved, we are, obviously strengthened and empowered to achieve better results for people in these situations. Without government assistance, they can be left there to rot. And we saw recently the Irish girl Tori Tui, who was a victim of domestic violence, ended up being charged with trying to kill herself with attempted suicide after being beaten and threatened and, ending up in hospital with bruises all over her body. Now, the Irish government got heavily involved in that case and we were able to bring her home very quickly. But that's another example of a victim being charged, and she faced certainly a long time in prison. But what I've seen lately is the well, not lately, for a long time, the British government has been unwilling to
Well, I was going
help
to
us.
ask you, how good are our own government?
Well, they have been good in the past. We've had certain MPs who have gone above and beyond and certainly helped many of our clients get home. But it's a little bit distressing to see the lack of assistance from the British Embassy, from diplomats who assure us that they're helping, but nothing seems to happen. With a change of government, we've just reached out to Keir Starmer's new administration and said, we have this existing case of a grandfather, Albert Douglas, who was tortured and abused in prison. With a new change of administration, we'd like to know what you are doing, because this one is so outrageous, where he's
Tell
been.
us. We don't know. I don't know this.
Well, this is a grandfather who was accused or jailed for writing a check, and the check bounced, which was a crime in Dubai. However, the forensic expert appointed by the court confirmed that he didn't even write the check. So after serving a 2-year sentence, Sheikh Mohammed Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai, gave him a pardon. And at that point, the British embassy thought that he would be returning home. They absolutely believed it. But he's still in prison now. So that pardon was almost 2 years ago. And the reason is apparently some red tape. There's a deportation order, but also a travel ban at the same time. So they're conflicting and they don't know what to do about it. But that is, frankly, that is just not true. It's very easy for them to just release him if they wanted to. But because he was a torture victim and raised the case at United Nations, raised it with the British Embassy, I don't think they want to let him go and talk publicly about what he's experienced there.
I
But the British
wonder.
government has just been talking a lot of talk, but we haven't seen very strong results. And we're seeing strong results from other governments, the Irish government, the Canadian government, the US government. So it's really disappointing to see the British government just more worried about having those meetings and parties with diplomats in the UAE than they are about helping citizens who clearly need it.
It's a very difficult job that you're doing because even though it is about human rights and you will be dealing with law and all of that, but there must be an element of when these people come to you, they must be so desperate. You must almost be like some sort of agony aunt as well, because it must be terrifying to be in a foreign country and find yourself on the sharp end of their law. How are people when they first come to you generally?
I mean, they're lost, they're distressed, they don't know what's going to happen to them. They've seen nightmare stories and they're facing that same nightmare. So when their families come to me, they're just looking for guidance, help. What can I do? I want to do everything I can to help my relative, just point me in the right direction. And they're usually extremely helpful. And once you start getting that momentum, when you start, speaking to people like JD Vance or the MPs in the United Kingdom, and you start getting responses, it sort of clears their head a little bit and gives them that hope. And I was talking to Joseph and Joshua throughout the whole ordeal and his whole family, as well as Tori Tui during her, very distressing situation. But obviously, yes, that's a huge element is, helping the families through
Very, very
such a
hard.
crisis.
It is a
Mm.
crisis, and you are absolutely brilliant at it. And thank goodness for you. You are literally, I think I've called you this before. I think you are a national treasure. I genuinely do. I think what you're doing it's fantastic. Like I say, it's in the service of people. And I know that these people are incredibly grateful to you as well, because you're like this shining light to them that enables them to fight their way through it. And why did you first take an interest in Dubai, by the way?
Oh, that was because one of my colleagues at Endemol took a short holiday in Dubai and was arrested there. And I basically led the campaign and worked with the lawyers to get him home safely. It succeeded, and then other people saw what I did for him because it was all over the media, Big Brother boss detained in Dubai. And they started contacting me and saying, well, can you help me as well? So, and it just grew just naturally from there.
You are amazing. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is absolutely brilliant work. These people are back home with their family now, exactly where they're supposed to be. It could have all gone so horribly wrong without your involvement and your intervention, everybody. This is really the phenomenal Radha Stirling. And I will put a link to Detained in Dubai in our description so people can check out more what you do. And how are you funded, Radha?
We do commercial cases as well. So our commercial, our contract commercial, where there's no risk of imprisonment, we charge for those services, and then that sort of funds the pro bono, much like a normal law firm.
You do an amazing job. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We greatly appreciate it. Take good care of yourself, everybody. Radha
Thank you,
Stirling.
Sonia. Great to see
Brilliant work.
you.
Great to see you too. Amazing. And doing good obviously does her good, doesn't it? Look at her beautiful complexion. Uh, Horrible situation. Imagine finding yourself in a country like that on the wrong end of the law. And thank God for people like her. Thank you, Radha. Keep up the good work, says Rowie. What a lovely woman to have on your side, Radha, says Tara. Thank you for all you're doing. God bless you.